Hello Crystal Pure owners, we're here today to show you how to program your new salt system. Let's get started. Alright, before we go over everything that's on this control board, there are a couple things that are preset at the factory that you might want to change. The first of which would be the temperature setting. So currently it's off, so we'll turn it on. You just move this over to auto, and then you press this diagnostic button once, and you'll see it's currently set at 24 Celsius. That's the temperature of the water right now. So you move the switch over to superchlorinate, then back to auto, and it changes it to the Fahrenheit reading. The next parameter that you might have to change is the salt cell setting. So it may come from this factory set on T15, and that's a 60,000 gallon salt cell. But if you have, if you ordered the 20,000 gallon system, that's an F3, and it wouldn't work correctly. So you have to change the salt cell reading. So what you have to do is press the diagnostic button 8 times until it displays the salt system, or the salt cell. And you see there it's T15, that's the 60,000. So what you do is slide it over to superchlorinate, back to auto, and that'll change it to F3, which is the 20,000 gallon cell. And you would do the same thing until you see F15, which is the 40,000 gallon cell, if you had a 40,000 gallon system. So there you go, and that's it for salt cell. All right, the next thing we're going to do is change the salt level, which is currently set on the metric unit, which is grams per liter. We're going to change it over to the imperial parts per million. So what you do is you press the diagnostic button 5 times until you see the instant salinity level. And you'll see it's in the metric unit. You just switch it to superchlorinate, back to auto, and you'll get the parts per million. Currently this one's at 1900 parts per million. All right, now we'll go over some of the different controls on the board. So the first one would be off. This just means it's not generating any chlorine. When it's in the auto position, it means it's generating chlorine. If you move it all the way to the left, that's superchlorinate. You'd want to use that if you get a lot of rain, or a lot of people using the pool and you need to boost up the chlorine. You'll run it in superchlorinate for 24 hours. The pump, of course, has to be running during that time. But most of the time you'll be running it in the auto position. And when it's in the auto position, it's going to be generating the amount of chlorine where you have it set on the output. So you have a dial right here, it goes from 0% all the way to 100%. Obviously the higher you go, the more chlorine that's going to be generated. Alright, this button right here is your system status, and if you press it, it shows your different diagnostic displays. The first one is the pool temperature, second one is cell voltage, third one is cell current, the fourth one is desired output, the fifth one is instant salinity, sixth one is the product name sent to the pool automation control display, the seventh one is software revision level, the eighth one is the cell type. Okay, above the display you'll see some LED lights, starting from the left and working to the right. The first one is the power light, just means the box has power. The second one is generating. This means that chlorine is being generated. Third one is superchlorinate. Again, that's when you move the switch over to superchlorinate. The fourth one is remote control. This means if it's being controlled by a remote control system. The fifth one is no flow. That means the flow switch is detected, a decrease in flow, and that means also if that's illuminated, the system's not making chlorine. Let's see, the sixth one is check salt. That just means the salt level's low. The seventh one is high salt. Obviously that means you have too much salt in the water, and that also means the crystal pure is not generating chlorine. The last light is the inspect cell light. This means either the cell needs to be cleaned or perhaps replaced. Alright, that just about does it for programming your crystal pure salt system. If you have any questions, visit us over at inyopools.com. Thanks for watching.